Can Dogman be fought with water? Dear Scary Stories NYC, I've got a story for you that happened to me and my cat Misty just yesterday as I write this. She and I saw not one, but two of these Dogman characters in the space of a few minutes. In fact, this all probably happened in less time than it takes me to tell it, but Misty and I are both lucky that we survived it, intact. She is going to have to be an indoor cat from now on, as I've learned that she's a bit too big for her britches, out in nature, by herself. She has no problem picking fights with animals that you and I would run away from. I just can't trust her not to get herself hurt. So as I said, she's an indoor cat from now on. Now I'll tell you the story that led me to make that decision. It starts off with the Dogman, although I didn't know it at the time. Misty was in the back and I was in the kitchen. I suddenly heard the sound of a cat fight, and I jumped up to look out the back door of the house. My cat was hissing at a somewhat large dog and waving her claws in the air as though she were going to slice his face apart. I never saw the stray canine before, but it looked as though it wanted to play, not fight. I knew that was not going to be an option with Misty, since she hates any kind of dog. So I slipped on some sandals to go outside and break up the fight. As I put on my footwear, though, I saw that dog stand up on its hind legs and begin to growl at my cat. When it did that, it had to have been around 5'8" or 9. I'm only 5'11", so this dog was now my height if you included its tall pointed ears into the equation. I felt a lot less certain of my ability to stop this fight when I saw the creature go bipedal, and I saw it bare its surprisingly large teeth at my poor cat. I wished I had some kind of retractor beam I could use on Misty to pull her back in the house without me having to go out there with that man-sized growling dog. But I took a deep breath and I ran out, not toward the two arguing animals, but over to the backyard hose instead. While the two of them were preoccupied with each other, I turned the water on all the way. Then, untangling the hose as I went, I put that nozzle on jet stream, and I prayed for the best. When I looked at the conflict, I saw Misty was now standing up on her rear legs. Only with Misty, she looked more like a meerkat than a human being. Both of them were still posturing and trying to look frightening, but neither had as yet struck the first blow. I let loose with a jet stream of water right in that dog's face. It yelped and tried to move out of the way, but I was too close to miss, and the water pressure was especially good that day. I wasn't only able to keep the water pressure on him, I was able to spray him in various parts of his face to change his expression for my own amusement. The dog was more afraid of water than I had been expecting, and he soon gave up and yelped off into the woods, back down on all fours like a regular dog. Happy ending, right? Wrong. You must never have lived with a girl cat. Of course Misty took off, running after the dog retreating into the woods. I mean, of course she did. So I ran after her, pulling the hose with me, occasionally getting stuck. I kept untangling the hose and then continuing to run after my cat. I was deathly afraid to run out there without that nozzle in my hand, though. That dog was just too tall, and if it decided to turn back and come at me, I needed something to defend myself with. I knew the hose could reach every edge of the yard, at least when it didn't get tangled. So when I finally got to the edge of the property facing out into the dark woods beyond, Misty was sitting there waiting for me. She stared into the darkness, but she didn't follow that dog any further. I felt a huge sense of relief, so I dropped the hose, and I stood there panting and laughing for a while, leaning over to pet my still tense cat. And that was when I heard the rumbling in the ground. When it hit my ears as well, I could tell that something large was coming out of those woods. And it was coming soon. I picked Misty up in my arms, intending on running us both back into the house, but Misty was not having it. She staged a mostly peaceful protest slicing my arms up as bad as a little house cat can slice human arms up. Misty had already decided that she was going to defend our property from whatever was coming out of those woods, and I was not going to be able to interfere with her plans and intentions. So, instead I picked the hose back up and tested its stream, getting ready for what might happen next. From the sound of the ground vibrating, I thought it might be 2 or 3 dogs this time. I was sort of right while also being very wrong. It was something probably the size and weight of 2 or 3 of those large dogs, but it was only one incredibly large upright canine being that emerged from those woods. It was so tall that I dropped the hose. Then I picked it up again, but when the immense dog turned to look in my direction, then I dropped it a second time. This was a large upright canine, the same sort of coloring as the previous one, but this one was dinosaur size, or well, at least polar bear sized. It had to be 11 or 12 feet tall. It was twice as tall as I was when I was standing up. Realizing that made my knees wobble, and soon I wasn't standing up any longer. I was sitting on my butt on the grass, unable to close my slack jaw, and unable to even think yet about standing back up. I had been a materialist and a believer in trusted news sources up until that moment. I don't know what to call myself today. Now I'm one of the people who sees monsters. Now I'm one of the people I used to giggle about. I feel like a character in an old Twilight Zone episode, being taught a harsh and ironic lesson by life. All these years when I thought people who saw monsters were stupid, and that I was so much smarter, I actually had it all in reverse. It's pretty embarrassing to admit that, and so now you see why I'm not putting my or my cat's real names on this story. Even anonymous, it's embarrassing to admit how dumb I was. So the giant dogman walked out of the woods, and for the first time, I could see her from head to toe. I say her, because when I could see her chest and belly areas, I saw that they looked very much like a larger version of what my old German Shepherd girl's underside used to look like. This was a big old mama dog. It was not the daddy of that previous one, it was the mama. And that did nothing to make me feel any better, since mother animals are known for how vicious they can get when protecting their young. I prayed that if I just sat there on the ground pathetically, that the dog mama would get bored with me and move on to the next family crisis. However, Misty had other plans. Racing past me, making the angry sounds that she makes at mice she intends to catch, Misty ran toward that giant mama dogman. Adrenaline overruled my fear, and I grabbed the hose, rising to one knee in the process. I aimed and blew that water toward my cat, intending to push her away from running toward the huge, feral predator. I missed, though, and I hit the dogman mama in her foot instead by accident. Well, the big dog lady acted like I had ruined her painted toenails or something. She seemed stunned by the cold water hitting her foot, far more than I'd expected. I took my chance that what worked on her pup might work on her as well, and I turned the hose on her. First on her feet, then up the body until I landed on her face. Wherever the high-powered water hit, she reacted like a shooting victim from The Godfather. I'm not sure what she thought was in that water, but she didn't like it, and she definitely was not taking any more steps in my direction. So the happy ending comes now, right? No, because my girl cat was still there. Misty noticed the younger dogman lurking at the edge of the woods, and she charged off toward him. Seeing this, the mother dogman retreated fast, picking her pup up as though he were a teddy bear, tucking him under her arm, and running bipedally off into the woods. Yes, she stuck a creature almost my size under her arm like a toy. Once again, Misty chased them to the edge of the dark woods, then sat down and watched them run away. I felt I had a little choice but to do the same, so I sat down next to her. I knew better than to try to pick that cat up again. So, the hose and I sat there on guard duty until Misty finally decided the excitement was over and trotted back to the house to loudly demand that I let her back in. It's only been 1 day since this happened, and Misty does not really believe me yet that I'm never letting her out there again unless she wants to be on a harness and a leash. Even that way, I bet she could figure out how to get out of that harness. I'm glad she doesn't seem to want to go into the forest, but I'm concerned with how confrontational she's willing to get with animals that come into the yard. I'm hoping we never see the Dogman creatures again, but it's far too soon to know, so I'm still pretty shaken up by the entire experience. The one piece of important information that I can pass on to anyone out there who might find themselves in a similar situation is this. Dogman can be fought, or at least deterred, with water. CS rhymes with yes. She's always right, with every guess. Please join me in thanking today's executive producer, CS, for making this episode possible. CS has been so instrumental in keeping us on the air, and she's the executive producer of our next episode, too. Things are a little rough on YouTube right now for creators, but since things are tough all over the world, that shouldn't be any surprise. Advertisers are spending less on YouTube in general, and that's forced us to depend on our most special viewers more than before. We have a PayPal club and a channel membership club, both of which offer roughly the same perks in return, such as extra episodes and over a day of secret archived uncensored stories. We also now have ways to directly donate to us by clicking the thanks button under all our videos. That's sorta like Super Chat. Believe me, CS has done it all for us, and she's a main reason we're even still here. Now to fill in the rest of the deets is international TV spokesmongrel Henry Lee Dogman. Hank. Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that when it cuts off after I think 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.